Hello, everyone. I see folks starting to join our webinar. We are going to give it until 2 or 2:01 on the East Coast before we start, but wanted to say hello to folks who are trickling in early, and we will start soon. All right, everyone. Hello. It is so good to be together today to officially launch our growth and commitments process. I know some folks are still joining us, but we're going to kick off and get started. I'd love for you to just share in the chat your name, your organization, where you're calling in from today. Just to get a sense of who is in our virtual Zoom. And I can start. I'm Yasmin. I'm the Chief Program Officer at 100Kin10. I'm also our Chief Email Sender. Thank you for reading all of the emails that we send you and have sent you about this process. We're so excited to kick off today. We are actually, the team is at our headquarters in New York City. It's the first time that we have been together in person as a team since March 2020. So it's a really special day for us today to be together and to be here virtually with all of you. On our next slide, I'm just gonna quickly share our agenda. We're going to start with Talia Milgram-Elcott, our Executive Director, joining us to welcome everyone and give an overview of our goal and where we are headed. And then I'm going to hop back on and get into the nitty-gritty of commitments, which is what we're here to launch today, the process of supporting you all to make commitments to our next goal. So we'll go through the various types of commitments, some of the criteria and tips that we have learned over the years around how to develop strong commitments. We'll go through some of the additional application questions that you'll be responding to, the materials that we've put together to support you, different opportunities that you can join with some key dates. And then finally, we'll share what the next year looks like for this network and for you as partners moving forward. We'll move through that relatively quickly and leave a bunch of time for Q&A. Feel free to ask questions throughout this discussion, but just know that we will bring up a few other members of our team to answer any specific questions you have at the end. So with that, I'd love to ask Talia to join us. Oh, sorry, one more little quick thing. This I wanted to share with you is a website called Path to 100Kin10. And it's a website that details all of the amazing impact that we've had together over the last 10 years. There's an evaluation that Bellwether conducted about our work. There's tons of stories of partner impact, tons of data, information about our approach. I share it because today we're really focusing on the commitments and our work moving forward. But I always want to celebrate our impact and celebrate all of you. So I just wanted to name that for you to check out when you have a chance. And now I will invite Talia up to join us. Muted.
I was muted. It is so great to be here with all of you. I could spend all day just reading your scroll, the scroll of everyone who is dialing in from all over the country. We started our work together. Some of us literally started it together, and over the course of these 10 years, all of us joined together, and those who are even starting with us now are part of this we. We started this together in 2011. What we knew, the one thing we knew for sure, is that if we were going to reach a goal as audacious as 100,000 STEM teachers in 10 years, that we could only do it if we did it together, that none of us could do it alone. And that the audaciousness of this goal given to us by President Obama kind of propelled us into radical collaboration. And it is exactly that kind of radical collaboration that our field needs and that our students need. And as you all know, in 2021, 10 years after setting that goal, this network, an incredible collective of hundreds of organizations and thousands of leaders across the decade, we crossed that threshold together. We crossed that finish line together, having prepared more than 108,000 teachers. And Yasmin said to me just a couple of minutes ago, she said, if I could spend all of this time just celebrating that that triumph together, that's what I would want to do. And we have so much we deserve to celebrate, and at the same time we have so much more work to do. And we know that even before the pandemic, too many teachers were leaving. Too few students, especially our Black, Latinx, and Native American learners, were experiencing excellent STEM or even had access to the basic STEM courses like calculus and physics and chemistry, in which a majority of schools that serve a majority kids of color are not even offered because they do not have the teachers to teach them. And so we knew our work was cut out for us. And then the pandemic hit, and we crossed that threshold together. And we knew we needed to look ahead to the next decade, because in 2 decades, we believe we should end the STEM teacher shortage once and for all. And so then the question was, what if that is the goal, if that is the end goal, is ending the STEM teacher shortage once and for all? If we can do that together in 2 decades, if we hit our moonshot in that first decade, what was our next shot? What was our Mars shot? As a good friend and ally to the network and a former astronaut, Leland Melvin, asked us, what's that next Mars shot? And so we asked and turned to young people. We turned to young people from around the country, but especially Black, Latinx, and Native American young people who have been most excluded from STEM opportunity and have so much of the brilliance that we need as a country and as a planet to solve our most pressing challenges, so many of them centered in STEM. And we asked them to tell us stories about their experiences in these fields. And what we heard from them has become our next shot, our Mars shot together, and it's going to define our next 10 years of work. We heard from them that they need great teachers. And so we will prepare 150,000 teachers, and we will retain 150,000 teachers. And we heard from a young woman writing in Texas. She said, I went to a magnet school and had the most amazing math and science teachers, and it is why I am studying science. And she was a first generation college goer studying science in college. She said, but my sister went to our local school and I could see the difference. She did not even have the classes I had, and the teachers that she had, they were nothing like mine. Mine had been there for so long and they were so passionate about their work. And so we know we need to prepare and retain those teachers, especially for schools serving a majority Black, Latinx, and Native American students. And then we heard from our young people how rarely they had teachers who looked like them and how much it mattered when they did. And in fact, we heard from especially our Black and Native American young people, 600 storytellers in total, that they experienced teacher racism 2 times as often as other storytellers did. And that when they had teachers who represented them, that they were, they felt like they could shift towards STEM and they had a place in STEM more, 2 times as often as anybody else as well. So we know how powerful representation is for our kids of color, but we also know how important it is for all learners to know that their role models look like the full diversity of this amazing country. And so we are committing to increase the number of Black, Latinx, and Native American STEM teachers prepared and retained. And we are setting our sights in this 10 years to prepare teachers who look like the students they serve. And so we're going to work and talk with you and work as a network to ask if in 10 years from now, we know that our country deserves and our students deserve to have teachers who look like them. What would it look like for each of you who is preparing teachers to mirror the population of your state or your region or your city or your district, whatever feels the most salient to you? What would it look like for your teachers to look like their students? And then finally, when we started this work, we were thinking we would hear about courses, about classrooms, about labs, about after-school opportunities, about all these kinds of things. And we did. We heard stories about all of those things. But the thing we heard more than anything else from our young storytellers, 94% of them, is that they were yearning to belong in their STEM classrooms, yearning to feel like they had a place there, that they deserved to be there, that they could succeed. And so we are inviting all of you and together collectively committing to nurturing classrooms of belonging for our STEM students, for all of our students, and especially our Black and Latinx and Native American students. And because we know that it is so hard to create those kind of conditions if you don't yourself experience them, we're asking, how do we collectively create the kind of schools where teachers, and especially our teachers of color, can know that they belong as well? If we can create those classrooms of belonging and those schools of belonging, we have a true sense that that will drive the equity, the ability to prepare and to especially retain those teachers, and especially teachers of color, that these things feel super connected. And they're super connected because these three themes came out so clearly from listening to our young people, knowing that if we could listen to those most excluded, that they would point us the way forward to the kind of change that could ripple through our country and make the most difference for the most people. And I'll just end where I started, where we all started, which is, once again, this is a goal so audacious, so bold that no one can do it alone. We cannot do it alone. None of us can do it alone. It is the goal our country needs. And so we are so honored to be in this arena with all of you, making these commitments, taking action together, and collectively solving the problems that we will need to solve, the ones we know and the ones we don't yet know that we will need to solve over this decade to reach these goals. And when we do, we will transform opportunities for young people, giving them the support and the skills and the tools to transform our world with the inventions, the innovations, the solutions that they will bring to bear on our most pressing challenges. That is a world I want to live in. It's a world our children deserve, that we all need. And I am so grateful to get to be building it with all of you. Yasmin, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Talia, for going over the goal and what we collectively aspire to over the next 10 years. I'm going to start digging into what it looks like to join the network and to make a commitment to this goal. If you're on this webinar, that means that we want you as part of this next effort and we need you. And there's a lot. So I want to take you through how we have structured this work. So the first thing is, as you are thinking about developing the commitment, we've created a structure for different organizations. Different types of organizations are positioned to take on different elements of this goal. No one organization can take on all elements of the goal. And so there's 4 different commitment types. The first is for organizations who are focused on teacher recruitment and preparation, or who want to make teacher recruitment and preparation commitments. So institutions of higher education, alternative certification programs, teacher residencies, early pipeline programs, et cetera. The second is primarily for districts. Well, it's especially for districts and charter management organizations. And the emphasis of those commitments is on hiring, retention, and support. The third type is for organizations that support teachers, but that aren't running schools or districts. So professional development organizations, science-rich institutions, organizations that work with teachers. And those commitments are focused on teacher retention and support. And then finally, we have field building commitments. We know that teachers are not responsible for the change that we seek, and neither are teacher serving organizations solely responsible for this work. It really does truly take everyone. And we need foundations, corporations, media organizations, policy and advocacy organizations, federal government agencies, and many others to help clear the path and make this work possible. So on the next slide, for each of the commitment types, as you're working through your commitment, you will have the opportunity to choose the focus of your commitment. These focus areas aligned to the goals that Talia shared. So if you are a teacher recruitment and preparation organization, you might make a goal around supporting teacher candidates to support students and foster belonging for students, and you might make a representation commitment, but you don't necessarily need to make all. So these are the kind of 4 categories or focus areas within each commitment. This will make much more sense as I go through the detail of it. For the commitments, we've put together some criteria that we believe will help organizations construct commitments that are kind of aligned across the network in terms of level of detail and content. So the first criteria is that we're asking organizations to make at least one commitment aligned to our shared goal. And that commitment should describe how your work is specifically and directly contributing to one or more of the focus areas of our shared goal. The second is that it's measurable. So it describes the number of districts, the number of pre-service teachers, the number of in-service teachers that will be impacted by the commitment. You can also include other measures that you're using to track your work if that is more appropriate. The third is that the commitments are outcome oriented. So in addition to being measurable, we really want to understand what will change in the experience of students and in-service teachers and pre-service teachers as a result of your work. The fourth is that it is transparent. And by transparent, what we mean is that the commitment really describes how you plan to achieve the outcomes and why you think your approach will work. And finally, it's time bound. So for all of these commitments, we're looking at a 5-year time horizon and the work that you expect to do and achieve through your commitment over the course of those 5 years. And these criteria will be mostly are designed to help you construct a strong commitment. They're designed to help create kind of consistency across the network in terms of the breadth and depth of what is described. It's also to help other people understand your work and to learn from your work and to identify places where you want to learn from others. And we are having a panel of experts and practitioners assess commitments around these criteria, but our hope is that the criteria are clear enough that it really helps folks kind of construct commitments that are at an equivalent level of depth and detail. And yes, all of these slides and more will be shared in an email immediately following this event, and so you don't need to take notes or really remember anything that I've said. Some additional tips for the commitments. Over the last decade of supporting organizations to make commitments, we've found that there are a few practices that help folks construct really strong commitments. So the first is leveraging the unique strengths of your organization. You might be focused solely on teacher preparation, but you might be doing work across preparation, across support, in-service teachers, across belonging. So really think broadly about what you're best or uniquely positioned to do based on your expertise and your role within the larger STEM education belonging ecosystems. and your ability to influence change. The second is using clear and descriptive language in your commitment, really so that your commitments will be shared publicly. And it's so helpful to have, to use language that helps people really understand the work that you're doing. So for example, rather than using terms like high quality or excellent or other adjectives, really sharing like what makes your work high quality, what makes your work excellent, so that folks can really understand and learn from what your approach is. The third is to be race explicit. We would love to see commitments that describe how you will center Black, Latinx, and or Native American students or teachers or other students and teachers that are marginalized in your community that you want to focus on, and to be explicit in naming those specific communities is going to be helpful in understanding the work that you're doing. And finally, co-creating. It's possible for an individual within an organization to develop a commitment on behalf of an organization, but it's even more powerful when it's done collaboratively. So we suggest engaging multiple people who will contribute to or be impacted by your engagement in the network. And that's across all levels of the organization, folks who are implementing the work, organizational leaders, practitioners, teachers, students, are all useful collaborators in developing your commitment. So I'm going to go through some of the commitment prompts to give a little bit more flavor to this work. So across all of the commitment types, whether you're focused on recruiting and preparing teachers, retaining, hiring, and supporting teachers, all different commitment types will have the opportunity to make a commitment focused on student belonging. So the prompt for that is, how will you support your teachers, your teacher candidates, to develop the skills and mindsets to foster belonging in STEM classrooms with a focus on the needs of Black, Latinx, and or Native American students over the next 5 years? So everyone will have the opportunity to make a commitment related to student belonging. Again, it's not required that you make a commitment to all of these prompts. These are just the options. So everyone can do a student belonging. The next one I want to take you through are some commitments that are specifically for organizations that are recruiting and preparing teachers. So the first one related to our equity goal. How will you increase the number of STEM teachers that complete your program over the next 5 years? So as Talia described, it's so important for us to focus on students that have been most excluded, in particular Black, Latinx, and Native American students and teachers. But we have a shortage, like a desperate shortage, that we really need to address. So in this commitment, you're welcome to share your work to increase the number of STEM teachers that complete your program overall. The second commitment prompt for recruiting and preparing STEM teachers is, how will you prepare teachers specifically for schools serving a majority Black, Latinx, and or Native American students over the next 5 years? So we're really working to emphasize preparing teachers for schools that are facing the greatest shortages, which through our work and our research are schools that serve majority Black, Latinx, and Native American students. So if you are doing work or hope to do work in that realm, we would invite you to make a commitment there. The third is, how will you increase the number of Black, Latinx, and or Native American individuals who complete your program over the next 5 years? So this relates to what Talia was sharing around an aspiration that we have, that at the end of this decade, we are preparing teachers in proportion to the population of Black, Latinx, and Native American students in any given region, state, or community. Given the importance and impact of students having teachers with shared identity. And then finally, for recruiting and preparing commitments, how will you foster belonging in your program with a focus on the needs of Black, Latinx, and/or Native American teacher candidates over the next 5 years? And we really believe that it's very difficult for teachers to foster belonging if they do not feel a sense of belonging themselves. And what we've heard from partners and teachers when talking about these goals is that that really starts in the preparation space. And so we are asking folks to think about how they might foster belonging for STEM teacher candidates with a focus on Black, Latinx, and Native American teacher candidates. So those are the commitment prompts that are specific for recruiting and preparing teachers. In addition to those commitment prompts, we are asking all of our preparation partners to share projections about teacher preparation numbers over the next 5 years. These are not like firm commitments. It's just really helpful for us to get a sense of the anticipated trajectory over the next 5 years. And for this question, you should please include any elementary, special education, or other teachers that you're preparing if they're STEM certified or otherwise being trained in STEM. You can also include formerly non-STEM certified teachers who are receiving their STEM certification through your work. So the next commitment type is for districts, charter management organizations that are focused on hiring, retaining, and supporting teachers. So the first one here, very parallel structure to the commitments that I just shared. How will you retain more STEM teachers over the next 5 years? So that's in general, retaining STEM teachers. The second one, how will you retain more STEM teachers in schools serving a majority of Black, Latinx, and/or Native American students over the next 5 years? So really focusing in that retention on those specific schools. How will you retain more Black, Latinx, and/or Native American STEM teachers over the next 5 years? So really getting at that representation goal and what retaining teachers of color looks like in your district or in your schools. And then finally, how will you foster belonging for your teachers with a focus on the needs of Black, Latinx, and/or Native American teachers over the next 5 years? Again, really emphasizing the importance of teachers feeling a sense of belonging, not only so that they have that experience modeled to them so that they can foster belonging for their students, but also as a way to increase retention. These commitments, these are retention and support commitments for non-districts and non-CMOs. So you will notice that these are very similar to the commitments that I just shared, the prompts that I just shared. The difference is that we're asking how organizations would contribute to increasing retention. So how will you contribute to increasing the retention of more STEM teachers over the next 5 years? How will you contribute to increasing the retention of STEM teachers in schools serving a majority of Black, Latinx, and/or Native American students over the next 5 years? How will you contribute to increasing the retention of Black, Latinx, and/or Native American STEM teachers over the next 5 years? And then how will you increasingly support schools to foster belonging for teachers with a focus on the needs of Black, Latinx, and/or Native American teachers over the next 5 years? The work that our partners who are focused on teacher support do with teachers is incredible and adds so much to the teacher workforce and profession. And we really believe that that work is so connected to teachers staying in the classroom and the role that you all have to play in increasing retention and really supporting teachers to stay in the classroom and thrive is essential and is an essential component of this work. And we have several like project teams in previous years. I think some folks, even on this call, who have thought about how they might think about the relationship that they have with schools through their professional learning through their professional learning and professional development work, and structure those partnerships in a way that impact the work environment for teachers. So I think there's a lot of creative opportunities for our teacher support organizations. Teresa, I see your question in the chat. On this example, would an organization answer for all four or of those, or just select one prompt? It's totally up to you. If you have work that you're doing and commitments that you want to make across four of these, you're totally welcome to do so. We are asking for organizations to respond to at least one prompt. So if there's one aspect of this work that you're focusing on, that is totally fine. It's wonderful. Okay, one more category that I would like to share, which is our field building commitment prompts. So these, as a reminder, just focused on organizations that are supporting this work in lots of different ways. And these commitments are asking, how will you support the network and or field to accomplish the goal? So again, the preparation and retention goal, the goals around schools serving a majority of Black, Latinx, and or Native American students, goals around preparing and retaining Black, Latinx, and Native American STEM teachers specifically, and then supporting schools to cultivate workplaces of belonging. Yes, and Lauren just put in the chat, you can make commitments across the different categories if it's relevant to your work. So you might make a field building one, you might answer one prompt in the field building category and the preparation category. It really just depends on the focus and mission and strengths and assets of your organization. There's one more prompt that is optional for everyone to respond to. And this really gets at an idea that's been really important to us, that as we're focusing on Black, Latinx, and Native American students and teachers, it's those students and communities have faced the most exclusion in STEM. And we believe that focusing on Black, Latinx, and Native American students and teachers will improve the STEM teaching workforce and ecosystem for everyone. And so if it's useful to you, we would love to have space. We want to provide space for you to share how you might use the insights generated in your targeted commitments to positively impact other students, teachers, or teacher candidates that you work with. This rationale, your response could be shared as rationale for your targeted commitments if that's useful to you. So that question and prompt is present across all of the different commitment types. So in addition to these commitments, and I know it sounds like a lot, but really you're probably going to be focused on like one or two of those prompts. And we have created a number of prompts just to help folks really hone in on the aspect of the goal that makes the most sense. So I think it'll be less overwhelming than it might feel being presented with all of these prompts. You'll notice in the application that there are a few other questions that we are asking. These are really just to get a sense of your organization, how we can support you, how we can connect you with each other, folks that have complementary things to learn and things to share. So we'll ask questions like organization basics, where you work on the teacher pipeline, the grade levels that you serve if applicable. We also have one question about your experience of the challenges related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is a question that we're asking and that we will share the responses in aggregate with the whole network. Just asking about, how your work has been impacted and how we can support you around that, how we can support each other around that. Team member contact information so that I can send more emails to more people. But really anyone who you think would benefit from connecting with other partner organizations, with other folks across the network, you can share with us. And then a short section on leadership support and certification of what you've shared in your commitment. So immediately following this webinar, you will receive an email that has a link, and that link will take you to this Google Doc, a guide to applying to the network. This has everything that you need to create your commitment. It's a workspace where you can collaborate on your responses with other colleagues, and it has links to other documents that you may need. So there's a deck that is similar to what I've shared today, but with more detail. So everything that you've heard will be written on the slide so that you can read it, and more. It includes some of the uncommissioned stories that Talia referenced, some of the data around the goal and the rationale for the various elements of the goal. And we'll also be sharing a link to a deck that has the research that we've compiled around belonging. It includes insights from dozens of articles and nearly 60 interviews that we conducted with partners and other experts. I think we've been sending that around in Roundup, so you should have access to it, but it's in this document as well. And then finally, there's a link to Award Force. So while this Google document is a place for you to prepare your responses and make it easy to collaborate across your organization, we are asking folks to submit their completed application via a platform called Award Force. I'm going to just show some screenshots of Award Force. This is what the registration page looks like. There's some instructions about how to use it. It's pretty simple, very straightforward. You can save your progress. I think there's another screenshot here that just shows you a little bit of what it looks like. It's pretty user-friendly, we think. If you have any questions or need any help with any of the materials or with Award Force, we are here for you. In addition to these materials and Google Docs, we also have some opportunities that we wanted to share. So we're going to be doing several different types of gatherings. The first two on July 12th and 13th are for districts and CMOs. Our work around retention, the emphasis on retention and measuring retention is new for us this year. And we know that districts, and what we've heard from our district partners is just how useful it is to connect with other districts and other charter management organizations to really think about how to hone in on a commitment that can catalyze change across the district and across school sites more broadly. So July 12th from 4 to 5, districts can get together. July 13th from 3 to 4, CMOs will get together. We're excited for those conversations. On July 20th from 2 to 3:15 Eastern time, charter management organization. So we're just thinking that charters and districts might have slightly different conversations just from feedback that we've heard that they'd like to talk about. Commitment feedback workshop. This is for all partners, and this is an opportunity to just workshop your commitment with other partners and get feedback from each other. It doesn't have to be, a complete commitment. You can think about it as first draft thinking if you'd like, but it's an opportunity for partners to get together and connect and give each other feedback. On August 3rd, we will have a Q&A session with the 100K10 team, just to ask any final questions that you might have about your commitment, really whatever has come up in the process. And then applications are due August 8th by the end of the day. And we plan to notify folks in early September. So that's what the next few months look like as it relates to creating your commitment and collaborating with us on that process. So then after that, we're so excited in October, we're hoping to have our first in-person network events in October and regional gatherings across the country. So excited, fingers crossed, it is our plan. And we cannot wait to see everyone, to bring in new partners and to connect. We've really been missing it. So that would be in October. We'll have onboarding calls with all of you over the fall and winter. Excitingly, we'll start mapping the challenges and strategies related to our shared goal, our 2032 goal. And that will start in the fall. And we need all of you to share the challenges that you see related to achieving this goal, strategies that will help us get there, so that we have a comprehensive understanding of the problem and solution space as we move forward with this work. We're also wanting to collaborate with you on our measurement approach. How are we thinking about measuring all the various aspects of this goal? And we're hoping to do that in collaboration with all of you. In early summer 2023, our hope is to launch project teams related to our goal and related to the map of the problem space. So that'll be very exciting. And then in the fall, we'll do a commitment check-in to get a sense of how folks have progressed with their commitments over the course of the year. We'll be in touch, of course, through all of that, sharing successes, connecting folks with each other. And we're really excited about the year ahead. So I'm going to ask Talia, Julie, and Lauren to pop up on screen. I think we can stop sharing the screen. And we'll just take a few minutes. Hey, Julie. Hey, Talia. Hey, Lauren. And we'll just give it a few minutes. If anyone has any questions, you can pop it in the chat. You can use the Q&A feature. And we are also here for you one-on-one, so you can reach out to any of us if you have any questions that you want to discuss that are more specific to your context. We'd love to connect.
We'll just chat while you all are doing that. I was just thinking what Julie said, and that's so right. We are here for you. There is no us without all of us, and we can't do this without every one of you. So we're so glad you're here and so inspired by what we heard from these young storytellers, and inspired to bring that vision to life with you over this decade. Oh, yes. I love that, Tom. That's so true. Not too small and not too large. People have made amazing commitments. You know, this network, I was thinking about it, like why the commitments? And in David Byrne's play, American Utopia, there's this great moment where he talks about some like research they did where people signed a little note that said, I promise to vote. And then the people who signed it were like way more likely to do it. And he sets up these little tables in the back of the theater, like go sign up to vote at the end of this. But he kind of hit on something that we knew from this work with all of you, which is when we say together, we're going to do this thing, we like those words, that action, that like signature, that public commitment, it like propels us forward. It makes possible what might have not been possible or might not have happened otherwise. And when this network prepared 108,000 STEM teachers, it did that in the context of a decline in teacher preparation over this country that was precipitous and the greatest decline that we've ever seen. And yet this network collectively prepared more teachers in the final 2 years than in any other 2-year period. So sometimes it feels like we can't do the hard things. Like we no longer know how to do the hard things as a country, but it's not true. We do. We have done them before, and we can do them again. And so the commitment is the bedrock of that. What you all agree to do, what you believe you will do, what you breathe into action as you write it down, is the things we will do together. And so, like Tom said, like nothing is too small or too big to dream and to help bring into action. And then we will all be here for each other to solve the problems that we will inevitably confront as we try to reach the goals and achieve our commitments. I'm off mute, so I can answer that one, but Yasmin just came off
Talia,
mute.
do you
So
want
I'll
to
let her
take
do
a
it.
couple? I think these are great questions for you to tackle, and I can jump in.
Did you say me?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. We include CS and have always included computer science inside of STEM. We see that as a core part of technology. They're not the only part of technology. So 100% yes on CS. And in fact, I saw we teach CS crew joining us here, and that crew, as part of their 100K10 commitment, prepared more CS teachers, I believe, than any other institution in the country as part of their 100K10 work. So yes, for sure for that. What kinds of resources for these commitments, in addition to the networking and project teams? Yasmin, you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, I think, this is a new goal, right? There's elements of this work that we have done together over the last decade and elements of it that are very new. And so one of the things that I'm most excited about in our next phase is really thinking about that mapping process and engaging with all of you to understand, like, what are the big major impediments at a national level to achieving these goals? And what are the ones that we can take on together? And as we're thinking about the challenges that are highest leverage, what are the unique ways that as a hub, we can kind of intervene in the system to help move things forward? So I think that my thought on that is that it is dependent on our understanding of the problem space and how we define that together and with our stakeholders. And to get at Alex's question a little bit, and I can share more on that, like our storytellers and teachers as well. Talia, is there anything you would add to the resources question?
I'll try to answer both those and build on what you said. I love everything you said, Yasmin. So the first is that we know that so much of what we need to figure out, that amazing teachers, amazing professional development providers, amazing folks out in the field, all of you have solved many of these challenges. We're not starting from scratch. We're building on the shoulders of giants, all of you and your colleagues and all the folks out there. And so a big part of what we are going to work on and work to support the network to do is to make sure we are learning from each other. So much good work is lost in the individual minds of the teachers or others who create it, in the schools or places where those are experienced, and don't get to the other people who could use it to build on and adapt to their own environments. And so the first thing we're going to do and commit to do is to help more of that knowledge be in play and alive in the network, so folks can pick up where other people have left off and keep the baton moving forward. And the second is that we know that there will inevitably be some unsolved problems. And so we'll keep innovating on how to best create the kind of opportunities that help us to solve those unsolved problems in collaboration, because we do believe that the hardest problems can't be solved on our own and need to be solved with different environments where they have to be applied in mind. And then we also learned some things in the first decade about how to do that. And one of the most amazing things that came out of all of you all writing to us in your surveys and out of the Bellwether evaluation is that people accessed resources, ideas, expertise they could not have found on their own, and were able to build off of best practices from each other without our ever telling you what they were. And so that collectively this network created hundreds of solutions to the most pressing problems that you all were experiencing. And so we know we are building on that amazingly strong foundation. And Alex, to your question, and like Yasmin said, there's so much innovation that will still come. And then we are continuing to engage the storytellers. Literally, was just looking at something earlier today. The storytellers will continue to tell their stories with us, and we have some thoughts, at least like preliminary, about how powerful would it be to keep coming back to these storytellers and to new ones, to keep hearing their stories, so that part of what we are engaging is how are they shifting. What are we seeing in that shift, and hearing it from the folks directly. And yes, I don't think there's ever going to be a network again that doesn't center the experiences of those folks in closest to the classrooms and farthest from inclusion in STEM. Amazing, hand raised, I love this.
Mitria, I don't know if you raised your hand on purpose, but I'm gonna let you talk. Oh no, I think you put it down. So maybe you didn't raise your hand intentionally.
What we say is hi to everyone, because there's something so great about being together, but also something so wistful about it, and how fabulous will it be when we can come together and do some of this work also face to face and alongside hugs and high fives or elbow bumps, whatever folks are feeling comfortable with. I see a question from Teresa. Yeah. Yep. Last in, first out. Yes, that is great. I think that is 100% right. And that's part of what 100Kin10 does. It says like, okay, you're not alone in experiencing this challenge, but in the old world, you'd be alone in trying to solve it. And so you're noticing it, it's happening here in New York, it's happening across the country. Let's bring folks together so that people can understand what's happening and then figure out what are the tools we need to ensure that exactly these teachers we are hiring and bringing in, teachers who are going to intentionally reflect the students who they are serving, who will be taught in hands-on project-based, integrative ways. How do we support them to stay in the classroom and not find that in budget cuts they are the first to go? We can't solve that problem for you, and you can't solve the problem alone, but this will be a space where we can solve it together.
I think one of the things that we're really thinking about, and the field building commitments, but more broadly, is exactly what you're talking about, Teresa, too. Policy and legislation and rules and regulations have such a big impact on, as you know, as you're pointing out, and I think thinking expansively about the strategies and tactics that we can use and collaborate on together to move these boulders, I think is a really exciting part of what's ahead. And it's not just the problems of practice in the work that we do to support teachers, but really like the ecosystem and the system that enables that work to happen and that impedes progress.
I love that question too about the universal pre-K, or TK as they're calling it, I think in California. It's a super exciting opportunity. We know this pre-K teachers are so important to long-term development for kids, and that they are so rarely prepared with STEM. We know it's true all the way through elementary school. So what an amazing opportunity to think about how to set up teachers and kids, and that TK can be a pathway also for folks into, or certainly like pre-K into full-time teaching roles and roles that pay family sustaining wages. So I think there's so much opportunity there to think about how to set that up right from the start. And we have lots and lots of partners in California.
Are you here? Am I here?
Really so true.
I was gonna say, I lost y'all for a minute, and it made me think about
We may have just lost Yasmin momentarily. I feel like everyone should put in the chat what you think she was going to say. Oh, there we go. Yasmin, I think we got you back. I know. On the edge of our seats. Community colleges, Fred. Yes, and actually this is a great time to say, Julie, you want to speak to an invitation that is open to all of you?
Yes, absolutely. Fred, that's an amazing point, and we would love to have community colleges make a commitment to the shared goal. There's so many different prompts that they could respond to, and they're a huge, huge part of us reaching this goal. So absolutely. And in general, we would love to invite you all to forward the commitment guide and all of the materials over to organizations that you think could make great partners. So that's an open invitation. You can feel free to forward. Next week, we will try to make this as easy as possible for you. Spoiler alert, the roundup will have some easily copy and pastable language, or you can just forward it. So we'll try to make it as easy as possible for you. But we know that each of you know a large handful of so many organizations that would make amazing partners and would be able to make really strong commitments to the shared goal. So do keep that in mind as you're reading over the commitment materials for yourselves, but also think about who you know that really needs to be a part of this work and this network. And Tom, I see your question about sites for the regional. So historically, we've hosted regional gatherings in areas where we have a critical mass of partners. So we think those will largely stay the same, but we're always open for new sites. And if you or someone else on this call are eager to host, definitely get in touch with us. We've had folks step up in the past and host in their local area before, and it's always amazing.
Regional gatherings are a great microcosm of the network at large. There are places where partners can take leadership. We come in to provide support, but the conversations that happen there can only happen there. So yes, let us know. We'd love to support you to host. Colleagues, I think we're just going to be left at the edge of our seats, wondering what Yasmin was going to tell us. Oh, we have some more questions. Give her a chance. Yes, 100% on the data. And there are a few places where that's showing up for us. First of all, commitments in that space is building the field. It is an essential tool. One of the highest leverage catalysts that came out of our original mapping of the challenge space of why we have a persistent STEM teacher shortage was a lack of data on teacher retention, attrition, and preparation. We know that most teachers are prepared in their states, and in fact, within 50 miles of where they go to school, and yet states rarely know who is leaving, who is coming, and what kind of openings they're going to have down the pike. So that kind of thing would be, I think, huge and a huge opportunity for the field. And at the same time, we're going to work together over the next few years to think about how can we better know what is happening in retention, and how can we create the kind of tools that would be easy for folks to use to have a better handle on what is the state of retention, the state of attrition in their own communities, so that they can make those kind of plans. And we're going to think together about how will we know if our teachers and schools are creating environments of belonging in ways that can support them to do more of that. And so I think there's some like really intriguing, really compelling measurement questions out in the field for us to tackle through commitments and through collaborative work. Yasmin, everyone wants to know what you were going to say.
I was just going to say that these comments are making me really excited for our upcoming events, our commitment feedback session, our small group discussions, because these are such rich questions that I think are questions actually for you all and for all of us to be answering together. And we are using this webinar format because it's just where we are in Zoom life, I think, as organizations in this moment in time. But I'm excited for some of these upcoming opportunities, and I hope you all come and discuss these questions with each other.
And I would say, like, discuss them, because that conversation is the beginning of taking action together. And it's exactly what Yasmin said. These are not questions to be answered by anyone. They're questions to be lived into and answered together. And Dwayne wrote about
yes,
about advocating for helping the leaders advocate for this. And yes, I will say, like, Yasmin mentioned targeted universalism, and what we have learned from Professor John Powell from the Institute of Othering and Belonging is there are ways to set big goals that can center the experiences of those most excluded and bring many, many people along. And he really believes that the path forward is in setting huge universal goals and then understanding what the targeted needs are of those most excluded and designing from there. And we have also come to believe that when we design from those edges, the ripples of those changes bring in and support so many people. And so the benefits of those changes designed for the edges, from the edges, with the folks at the edge can truly lift a country. And in this time of so much division and of so much need, we are hopeful that commitments in this vein can actually be what Professor Powell calls bridging commitments. They can build the kind of connection and commitment and capacity to make the change that we need. And that is 100%. Yes, we'll share it. It'll be linked in the materials you send, and we can share it here too.
And Dwayne, if you want to, oh yeah, I was going to say, Dwayne, I'll reach out to you. And if you want to just have a conversation around like what might be helpful to put together for your executive leaders. And that's something that we can use with other organizations. If anyone else is interested in that, we are happy to partner with you to create those talking points, to create materials that would help bring people along. We think that's so important, and we are here to support you and have your back on that.
And I will close out by saying 10 plus years ago, 11 years ago, a president set out a goal for us. And fast forward to now, and young people, primarily young people of color, 75% of them female and non-binary, set out this goal for us. And part of our work is to take our direction from them and to inspire our leaders, our colleagues, our peers, our communities to do the work that they have set out for us. And so we are going to be here to support all of us to corral our folks to do that, and to know that these are the voices from whom that will really chart our path. And if we can follow these voices for this next decade and beyond, we will make transformative change for this country and for our planet to boot.
And with that, we're done. Thank you all so much. Look out for an email in the next few minutes here with 15 minutes with all of the follow-up information, and just respond with any questions you might have. We'll look
Thank you all so much.
Thank you all.
Everything's
so excited.
Bye.